Okay, Oakleaf is at it again. I took my steering gear out of my Roadster, 1930, two-tooth, and brought it home, and we're putting a new sector shaft in and pressing this on, and that's where the problem comes in. So we put this in a lathe. We're going to drill the center of the steering shaft and then tap it, and then put the what is it, an all thread or a stud in there, and then drive it on with a nut. So we'll see how that goes.
How long? How much? Well, it's a half. It was really hard when I was doing it. Because you didn't get, all you got was chips off of it. You said they were throwing it on a container.
Yep. But the rate, what did I say, the money rate?
Yeah.
When we first did it, was too much for them. So we didn't get too many, like Sweden and stuff, they like those things. Finland.
Well, this one guy built a
Money exchange.
The exchange rate was killing you?
Yeah, at the time.
he built a glass doored building just to display the car. I don't think he's going to drive it. It was a DeSoto convertible.
Okay. Yeah, that thing is probably up there already, that shaft.
Yeah. All right, Dave put the worm on. Now it's threading the stud into the shaft.
Yep. Yeah, I got this if you want to.
Okay. Let's see what's going on already.
Set up. All right, Davey, that looks
Washer,
good.
2 spacers, another washer,
And some high pressure grease in there.
Just please.
Now we're pressing the worm on. Oh yeah.
For sure, you'd run out of.
Not yet.
Not yet, not too darn. You want a pipe on the end of that? Or
Well, here's the worm, all pressed on. And over here, you can see the key. And there's the threads inside the tube that we put in there. And I got me a brand new worm on my shaft, and I'm going to build that guy up tonight. Now, well, you saw us press the new worm on with our threaded shaft, and that baby's on there. And here's the old one. My buddy had to put a big cut in it and then drive a screwdriver or a wedge in there to get it off. But you'll notice it is keyed. There's this very slight key in there, and it only goes halfway, so that you're not driving that thing forever to get it on, so that helps. But that's the old worm. Here's the old sector shaft, worn and somewhat worn there, not too bad. Probably not terrible. I don't know about the teeth. That's the problem. And a lot of people think they can fix a gear with just a new sector shaft. I'm not sure if that's true. I tried it and didn't work, but somebody else tried it and it did work. So that was good. Put the bearing down at the bottom, put the worm in, drop the bearing on top of the worm, and then slid this in. And I'll admit I had to tap it a little bit, but she's in there and she's tight and it spins just beautifully. So we've got that. I think that's probably the hard part. Keep your sector shaft from going in and out, like from going in and out. That's the button that you screw in here and you tighten it to eliminate any movement of the sector, because if that moves, that adds slop to your system. So, and what you want to do is, first thing, that's the easiest you can do is just tighten this finger tight, or with a screwdriver, snug it up, and you really can't get it too tight, and then you lock it with a lock nut, and that just takes up any room that's between the sector shaft and that housing. So here's the new sector shaft, new bushings in there, nice fit, and this is the business end of your steering. And this is the cork washer that sits in here, and that's very important that it doesn't leak. It's got to sit in there. There she is. There she is now. Sector shaft goes in, and that matches up with the goes in. Now that sector shaft, the teeth in there are mating with the worm, and that's how you get your action. And this is the cone that lets you adjust the sector shaft. So I got this guy on. That's the eccentric screw that adjusts this angle, slides this plate this way. And there's an eccentric goes in here. I can't find it right now. That goes in, and it's eccentric, so it moves this thing back and forth, and that's how you adjust it. You bring it down into the teeth of the worm or back off. Well, to finish up with this guy, I found my eccentric nut, that part goes in and it's off center, and you build it up as I did before, and put those three nuts in, put the eccentric nut in, and there's a cone that goes in the center, and then the nut. And what that does, with these three slightly loose, you can rotate this nut here, and it will move this whole housing in toward the worm. So I did that, and I adjusted this to where I have very little, tiny. The amount of slop is almost nothing, so it's close enough now to get it in the car and see. If it stays this way, it'll be fine. When you tend to load it up, things change a little bit. But we've got this guy snug. That holds this race in toward the worm, and the other bearing is down here. And I think I'm set to go. Now we are going to put in an O-ring over this, and that goes in between this flange, and to make sure it goes where it ought to go, this pushes against the O-ring and the frame of the car. So that forms a seal of any grease coming in through the bushings. It hits the O-ring on the bottom, and the O-ring is pressed against this flange, and that washer simply does that. The tension of the O-ring squeezes the circumference of this. So I think we're all set. Put it in the car and see how she goes.